All right, here we go. Hope everybody is doing well. Sorry I have not been at school the last couple of days. I have been very sick, so bear with me if I sound funny, so I'm sorry if I do. Really quick before we get going with our lesson for tonight, tomorrow at lunch, right away at the very beginning of lunch, out in the stadium, we are going to take our picture for the yearbook. Okay? If you are not there right at the beginning of lunch and you are late, you will miss the photo. Okay? There were some clubs today who didn't get the right message or whatever, so they missed out and they were not happy. So make sure that you guys get there. Wear your blue Cyber Patriot shirts that we got. If you did not get your blue Cyber Patriot shirt, swing by. I will be there tomorrow morning by probably 7:45. You can swing by my room and grab that blue shirt, and we all can wear those for the picture for tomorrow. You could bring it with you in your backpack if you don't want to wear it tomorrow. But yeah, make sure that you're there in the stadium on the right hand side of the stadium in the bleachers at the very beginning of lunch. So get out of class, jam over there as quick as possible, and get that picture taken. Okay. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the jackets will be here on Monday. So if you ordered a jacket, please make sure you come check in with me before we go on winter break and grab that from me before that. Okay. Um, and I don't think, can we do individual things with our teams? If you want to, yeah, you could totally do individual things with your teams. Can be like almost like the senior picture where each team could have their own little thing if you wanted. I don't mind. You guys are gonna have to set that up. So Brennan just answered that. The club picture is in the stadium on the right hand side of the stadium, so closest to the soccer fields, and in the bleachers. And Maya, do you have anything? You want me to unmute you? Let's see if I can unmute you. I don't know if that's possible.
Here, can.
Oh, I think I just did it. Sorry. There you go, Maya. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So first, thanks to everyone who helped out at Geek Week last week. That was awesome. Everyone who showed up in the library and played the capture the flags and built stuff and just helped out. Great work. It was a lot of fun, at least I thought. And then the second thing is next week on the 20th, which I believe is a Tuesday, we're going to be having a Cyber Patriots Chipotle fundraiser. So, yeah, flyers are going to be going out about that really soon, but show up because we want a lot of money, as much money as possible. Okay? 20th is Wednesday. Thanks, Erin.
The flyers, and for all of you, the flyers will be on my desk in my classroom. You need a flyer in order to get any the percent that we would like. If you go to Chipotle that day, they give us 50% of the sales, which is unbelievable. So there are 74 of you, so 74 dinners. That's a lot of money. I believe Donna has posted the flyer in the Cyber Patriot Instagram. We will post it inside the Google Drive as well, but also swing by my room and grab a flyer. That's next Wednesday on the 20th, okay? It's from 5 to 9 and the Chipotle over in the Crossroads, I believe. Okay, Maya, anything else that you can think of?
Not right now.
Okay. All right, Mr. Bush.
Hi, everybody. So I'm going to ask Ms. Wood once again to help call on people and keep you guys focused. But why don't you go to the next chart? We can put it in, or I can do actually, why don't I present? Because then I have some stuff I'm going to show them that's outside the charts anyway. So.
Okay.
are you going to start
There you go.
recording also?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so let's see. Let me put this in display mode. There we go. Okay, so you got the announcements already. I actually took and added the one about the jackets on Monday, just so there's a record of it if you forget. And the reminder is be an active participant, pay attention. So we're all good at that now. And we've got 27 people. And actually, I'd like to ask for people that have attended the last few times, what's the thing I always have been, like the last 2 or 3 times I've nagged people to do at the beginning of our meetings? Subscribe. Yeah, YouTube. So we got to see how our YouTube count is today. Mrs. Wood, can you check on that on yours and see how many people subscribe, see if we can get one more?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to cover 2 things. We're going to cover how was the competition, and that's just pretty much a discussion, and then and we're going to help prepare for the next time, because I think, well, I guess we should just get into it. All right. So first of all, just soliciting from the group, this is a question to everybody, what was the most unexpected thing that either you, I guess, vulnerability or something that you found? And you can just describe it generally. You don't have to give the details, but what you found. Okay, Arin mentioned realizing I had the wrong audit policies. Protocol 1 disable. Shares and backdoor ports. These are all really good things. Let's see, Arin, what was, when you said you were you had the wrong policies, how did you fix that? Just generally, which policies were you, which audit policies were you talking about?
How do you like this? It's cool. Mom's busy though. It's cool. It is.
You still with me, Arin? Getting ready to write something? Or you can speak on the phone if you want. Okay. So, you know what? Maybe what we could do is add a slide. This worked out last time really well, where people were adding stuff right to the charts, and then that was a way we could use them for later for people to support. So I'm going to hit escape here and just add a slide. And we'll just say unexpected items. And go ahead and I'll put this on, I'll make it bullet mode here. List. There we go. All right. So one was protocol 1. I wrote that down, but please, while I'm leading the discussion, go ahead and add items directly to the slides. The GoToMeeting slides are in our weekly meetings. Okay, I see Maya starting to add one. Thank you. All right, so I think generally we are always used to seeing things like changing passwords, right? And we're always used to seeing, make sure your admins are your admins, or getting rid of accounts that you shouldn't have. And as per usual, those things showed up. The one thing, though, I think that I saw was that you didn't get as many points for those things, and there were a lot left of other vulnerabilities. So these things that your teammates are typing in, high-level things, are things that were found that can be used probably in a future competition. So let's see. So Maya you put on the list shares on Windows 10. So that must have been there's a for the Windows 10 that you had some file shares that you were sharing and that maybe shouldn't have been. Was that something that you learned from the README file? Or was it a general thing? Okay, so Maya, that was, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. When like halfway through the competition, when we started going through STIGs, it was a Cat 1 STIG toward the bottom of the list for Windows 10.
And that was, you said it was towards the end of the competition, or?
Maybe 2 hours in.
2 hours
for
in,
us,
okay.
So 3 hours in for everyone else.
So if you guys remember the STIGs, those are always a resource when you get stuck because there's lots in there and it's very helpful. The only problem, I'd say the main problem is with the STIGs that there's just so much to cover that you know, you're like going through a marsh and it's just very slow going to look at each one. So one of the recommendations I was going to suggest is that before you actually get to the competition, go and try to look at the STIGs and figure out the ones you think would be on the competition. You know, some of them, for example, there's a STIG that says, make sure your computer is in a locked room. And I know you mentioned this before, so that physical access, those are not going to be things that are on the competition because you obviously have physical access to the virtual machine. And, you know, there's no way to like take that away from you. So those are the things you have to look at. And if you go prep ahead, you can look and start to see the things that are the Cat 1 vulnerabilities and the bins.
So, Mr. Bush, can you elaborate a little bit then, and maybe talk a little bit about why these different lists and STIGs are so important? Like, I mean, everybody, they're talking about Cat 1s, Cat 2s. You know, some of our newer members might not necessarily understand what we're saying when we're talking about that kind of stuff.
That's a good idea. So I'm going to just remind you I'm going to bring up the STIG viewer, and this is going to be a chance to see to remind you what the STIGs are about. Let me just find that. But
those of us that are just joining us while Mr. Bush is pulling that up, if you had questions or things that you found difficult in the challenge, please post them into the GoToMeeting slides for today. That's under our Google Drive in the weekly meetings, underneath where it says GoToMeeting number 11, 12, 13, 17.
Okay, STIG viewer. I just was opening it. This always happens when you're joining live. Why don't you, while I'm looking, keep the conversation going, and then I'll once I get it, I'll join back.
One of the notes that I saw in the chat already was that the forensics questions got harder, or that you guys forgot to look at the forensic questions before you started doing things based off of the README. One of the big reminders that we always do, and maybe we forgot or something like that, was that you need to read both the README and the forensic questions before you start adding, subtracting, and doing things to your image. And oftentimes what will happen is if you don't look at them, you will get halfway through your competition and you will have deleted something or you will have added something that will not able you to answer the forensic questions, which were a decent amount of points this time around. You don't necessarily have to do the forensic questions first, but they are a good idea to look at them so that you and your partner can start to work through them as you go through. Does maybe Isaac or Leon or Garvin, you guys want to jump in on and talk about how you guys set up your game, your image? Do you guys look at the forensic questions and do them first or not? No, Sup B, you guys don't want to answer that question? All right. Yeah, you can use the mic. Isaac, go for it.
Personally, I just take notes on the README first and see what I need to do first. And usually I look at the forensic question and try to do anything I can to answer them before I do anything important. For this one, it was really weird because it had a lot to do with the FTP.
We're
So I
specifically doing
touched
Ubuntu right now,
FTP.
then, right?
Huh?
Ubuntu, you were focused on Ubuntu?
Yeah, I'm talking about Ubuntu right now, yeah.
Mhm.
So I didn't really touch anything about Ubuntu and about FTP until it came time for me to really answer the question. But for the first one, it was talking about group IDs, and that's really simple, and I didn't have to mess with it. Other than that, it's really just making sure you what's it called? Fit the requirements of the README. So that means like making really understanding what FTP protocols and settings they want us to have at, and really just digging through and getting all the points you really can.
Thanks, Isaac, for responding. Landon, I saw you just jumped on, and I'm not trying to pick on people here, but Landon did really well with the Windows images. Do you want to kind of talk about how you set up your image and what you do first, Landon? Do you go through the READMEs? Do you do the forensic questions? How do you go and set up your game? I can give you sound access if you want. Ashley did do a very good job in the Ubuntu. She had her whole team helping her there at the end for the last 5 minutes. Landon, are you with us? No. All right. Hey, then
So
go ahead.
I can jump back in, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so sorry for that. I should have had the STIG viewer up just to remind you, but we did cover in one of the previous meetings, I think, to how to get the STIG viewer and download it and use it. So this is the STIG viewer, and I'm focusing in on Windows 8.1 by checking these boxes here. So these STIG stands for Security Technical Implementation Guide, and then these are the vulnerability IDs that are listed. And so, for example, here's one, just looking at it, maximum password age. So it's telling you, hey, check to see what the password policy is. And they even recommend that you use the security and configuration analysis snap-in. And I'm gonna get to that in a few minutes. But it says configure the policy value, and it's changing it to maximum to age 60 days or less, except for 0. So they tell you basically what setting to change and to fix it, and that gets rid of a Cat2 vulnerability. The categories are basically level of danger. There's a definition of them in here's one of the STIG guides here. We go up to the little higher here. It explains what the cats are. Okay, Cat 1 is any vulnerability which will directly and immediately result in loss of the three things that you're always trying to protect: confidentiality, availability, or integrity. And then Cat 2 has a potential to result in that. And then Cat 3 is it degrades. So you can see it's just sort of levels of severity. But I guess to understand what they mean by confidentiality, availability, and integrity, what I think this would be a good topic for the chat. What do you guys think is meant by confidentiality? Some guesses, or you can go ahead and Google it if you want. No one knows what confidentiality means, or am I just not seeing the chat? Is something wrong? Okay, yeah, state of being secret or keeping secret. What would that be in the computer world? What are things like example? Yeah, passwords. So for example, one of the things you might be looking for is if somebody leaves a file with a bunch of passwords in it, that gives a risk, because if you know the passwords, then you can get into other people's information. Obviously, as an administrator, you have power. You have a lot of power, but it's still, confidentiality is really important. So encryption is one, yeah, to keep to make sure that you keep secret information or information that should be restricted confidential. There's a big thing in the government where you don't want to have people's personal information, such as like social security numbers and things like that, on systems that are not protected, because that is a loss of personal confidentiality. All right, what about availability? Anyone have an idea about that? Availability. Okay, access, making sure the correct people have the correct access. That's true. What's another example of availability? This actually ties into, I think, a couple weeks ago when we talked about the cyber vocabulary. What's an example of me making your computer not available to you, or a website not available to you? Not a firewall. Okay, closing out. Okay, those are all. So there's closing out ports, blocking outgoing traffic. That's if you do that, you're closing out some vulnerability, some availability. But that's not really where I was headed. What about if you want to go to your favorite website and a hacker has overwhelmed it with network traffic, and you try to open the site? Denial of service, yes. Right. So what are they taking away? Availability, right? What else? What if I went in and I deleted your account, and you were supposed to have an account, but I have root power, so I can do anything I want, so I just delete your account. What happens when you are trying to get to your account? It's not there. It's not available. So the system may still be running, but you may not be able to do your job because you can't access the things you need to. So anything that affects availability is really bad. And lastly, integrity. What do you think is integrity in this case? So we're thinking about like maybe a kind of thing that you're fixing in your Cyber Patriots. So what would be related to integrity? All right, this one's a little bit maybe harder to think about. It is kind of related to confidentiality in some ways, but the idea is that if you can't trust the information that's there, then you are basically you've lost it, it's lost in the integrity. So if you really, you have a trust that if you read a certain file or you're accessing something, that it is the file that you believe it is, and it hasn't been substituted. So a lot of hackers will also try to substitute or trick you or make you think that there's something that is not. So they've affected the integrity. An example is if they're able to, if a hacker is able to edit your logs, edit the logs of the system, then after they log in, so they log in at 10 a.m. in the morning using their credentials, their admin credentials which they stole, they could then go and edit the log to delete the fact that they were even logged in. So if anyone went to check and they said, so did anyone log in this morning? And it would be go, nope, there's nobody logged in. Nope, it looks fine. That's because they affected the integrity of the logs. They changed the logs. So, if you can't trust something. So the categories talk about those things where you're losing the confidentiality, so secrecy or protection, availability, be able to access or use the system, or integrity is that last part, that you can trust what you have or see. So someone goes in and changes grades, they have the ability to go and change grades, then that means you can't trust that those grades were the ones that Ms. Wood gave you, for example. All right, so those are the categories, and what Maya was saying was she found a Cat 1. So you can filter on Cat 1, so I'm just gonna add a filter. And now it only shows the Cat 1, so that makes it easier maybe during a competition, you don't have to look at as many. But still, there's several Cat 2s that matter. Okay, so that's the STIGs. Following upon that, Ms. Wood, do you think you have any follow-up questions that might be good?
There has been a lot of questions in the chat about backdoors.
Okay, and yeah, we really haven't covered what a backdoor is, and we can actually consider it in terms of these categories here. So I'm not sure where the term came from, but a backdoor is when someone who had access to a system put a way to get in that was not there in the beginning. So they basically open up an ability to access things. So even when you take away their access, they still have access. So you go in the front door, you have a key to get in the front door. Someone takes away your keys, you can't get in the front door anymore. But if you've created a back door, then you can come in the back door. And so it's a hacker. It's something though that is actually inserted. A backdoor is, I saw Abraham's point. A backdoor in a computer context is creating a way to access the system that didn't exist before. So you're actually, if taking it to the house analogy, it'd be like cutting a hole in the wall, putting a little door in there, and then covering it up with some bushes or something, so it looks like there's not a door there, and then getting back in. So I think that the README said something about there being backdoors, and that you had to find them, and that was I believe that they asked you to say the port, what the port was for the backdoor. Yeah. So how many people found the port and were able to get points? Could just put it in the chat if you got it. Okay, good. Catherine. So Tyler asked a question, do some computers have backdoors built into them? So a backdoor from the computer technology point of view is a bad thing. So whenever you hear that there's a backdoor, it's either was there like for testing purposes and they forgot to take it out, or you have someone malicious that's actually putting them in. So they're Brendan says NSA put one in every Windows computer. Yeah, well, you. So, if I did know something about that, I couldn't tell you anyway. But I don't think that's true. But so let's see. Let me get into the next thing I wanted to get into, which was a feature of the STIGs once again. So if you recall from when we did this, we downloaded these the STIG library. That was one of the steps that we had to do. And the STIG library was then you went into the STIG viewer and you said import, file, import STIG, and that's where you could add the libraries, right? You could add a whole zip file. But I want to point out that inside those STIGs, they are zip files. You don't just have to add them through this tool. There's actually some documents inside there. So, for example, here's a STIG library, and I'm just going to do a little search. On. Oops. Okay, analyze only. So what we have is, the reason I was searching for that is there's a template that I'm going to show you that is where you can do a test built in with what's built into Windows to check some basic security settings. So I'm going to open up one of the zip files. So there's a README, there's this overview file, and a revision history. So those are actual files, right? So in fact, I had one open, but this PDF is inside that zipped up directory, and it has some information in there that's useful to you. The one that I opened here is titled for the Windows operating system. And it gives you an overview, but it also gives you a technique, which I'm going to walk you through. So we're going to look at this assessment considerations, and in here, performing analysis with the security and configuration analysis snap-in. So on page 5. Moving down here to page 5. Okay, and that gives you the steps. So I'm just going to do the steps as we go and hope it works out good. So first thing, it says select start. So this is Windows 10. So Windows 7 is different, but you could do start here. But then they want you to look for the MMC. So I'm just going to type in MMC here. Okay. It's asking me if I want to do that. Okay, so there's the MMC. Then the next step, it says select add remove snap-in from the drop-down menu. So file, add remove snap-in. Okay, and then the instructions say select security configuration and analysis. So I'm just doing this on my home computer, and you can see I haven't done it before. Security configuration and analysis. There we go. We add it. Click OK. So that's a snap-in, which is basically an extension to Windows that they have. Then we'll right-click on security configuration analysis. Right-click. Actually, I think it's here. Either way. And it says to do open database. There's no database files listed here. So what it says to do, and this is what it says in the instructions, enter a name and path for the database to create one. So I'm going to call it like they did srr.sdb. You can call it anything. srr.sdb. Okay. Then the next thing is it asks you is for a security template, a .inf file. So the security templates are actually part of the STIGs, and that's why I was doing that search. But we have saved off a bunch into the Cyber Coolkit. So under Cyber Coolkit, then there's a folder called templates. There it is. And it gives you different templates by Windows operating system. So this is Windows 7 and Windows 10 because it's the same templates. And then it's this Windows 7 Analyze Only. So I'm just going to download this. Okay, so that's in my drive. Keep. I'm going to go and add it now. I'm going to go to downloads. There it is. Okay, so it's been added as a template. Then I can right click on this and do Analyze Computer Now. And I double click on it and I can see the results. And so first of all, you'll see that it gives you a nice organization of the different security things you should look out for. So here's account policies. So let me just double click on that. Password policy. All right, let's see. All right, so this gives you a comparison. It says the database setting, which was from the STIGs, and then what the computer is setting. So my computer does not enforce password history. So I am, according to the STIGs, it's weak. So what I should be doing is going back and then changing the setting to enforce a password history. The STIGs, the government setting, is they want 24 passwords remembered. So basically, every time you change a password, you can't reuse it. They want to make sure that there's 24 different versions. Maximum password age, 60 days. The computer setting is for 42 days. So that's less than 60 days. So I'm sorry, it's computer setting should be, it should be greater than. Let's see. Password expires in 42, but the policy is will expire at 60. But basically, when you see something in red, then it means that you should check it. So account lockout policy, the threshold is different. Now, yes, so Brennan asked, can you run this during the competition? Yes. Basically, the snap-ins are part of the Windows operating system. You just need to get the template to be able to run it against. Now, these templates are based on what the government says the settings should be, but your settings are going to be possibly different. So this gives you things to check, but it doesn't mean you have to change everything that's wrong. It just gives you like, oh, okay, like here's one, deny logon as batch job. And they have, database setting, shows guests and deny log on a service. I have a green, deny log on locally. So it's just a way to check. So Brennan asked, there's one for Ubuntu. So Mr. Rodriguez and I are trying to come up with some tools for doing those sort of checks for Ubuntu, but at least, and I think there may be one built in for the STIGs using SCAP, but we need to teach you how to use that. But anyway, I actually taught this last year, and I was thinking some of our Platinum members would have remembered how to do this or had done it, and I found out that they didn't. So I think it's useful to go over this again with you guys and put it in your toolbox of things to do. So any more questions? Okay, so one question is, so these are optimal settings like we should use during these competitions. So let's just say that they are what the government has defined as what they think is minimal security, or security that they recommend. So here's one, like, look at this, accounts, rename guest account. So they're looking, they want to check to see that that the guest account isn't called guest if there is a guest account. And another one would be rename the administrator account. So these quite possibly could have been on the competition. I don't know. So Leon, I can't say that all the current checklists in the Cyber Page Drive match the government recommended settings. So yeah. And Brennan, like you said, deleting the guest account would be important. Now the key is, if you need to have a guest account, it shouldn't be called guest. That's the thing. So what it'll do is it'll check if there's an account and if it's called guest, and then it'll mark you as red. Now, if there was no guest account, it probably would be marked white because it doesn't know. It doesn't see any guest account. So this gives you a whole slew of things that you can just try and possibly get points for. So there's a question about IS API filter be disabled. That one I can't speak to. And sometimes these things do matter on what the README says, because they may have a need for IIS to work that way. So if you disable it, you may actually make something break. There's like remote access is another one where they often want to be able to have remote access. So if your settings say to turn off remote access, then that's a problem. So there's different INF files for the different operating systems, as I showed you. We just grabbed the ones that said Windows 7. It turns out there's not a separate one for Windows 10, but it does work for the Windows 7 one. There's one for Windows 8, and in the current version of the STIGs, they have some different templates, but and so I haven't double checked to see if they have one for Windows Server 2016. But they also have some other templates, and we're going to hopefully try to teach you guys how to use that. And even if we can't get those to you before the next competition, maybe you'll have it for next year. So. All right, that's pretty much all I had to cover, Ms. Wood. Do you have any other follow-up questions for me?
What I would like to do is I'd like to create a Google Doc in our Drive from round 2, basically kind of like what we just had with our GoToMeeting here, with some of the questions of the difficulties that we had or unexpected items. If you guys can start to make a list, and I'll create that document right now, and just have that there so that we know kind of where to kind of guide our GoToMeetings in the future. The next competition is not until January 19th, I believe. And we have some time to kind of set up some ideas of what we really should be focusing on. So AJ, you asked, when do we find out what level we make? This weekend is the makeup weekend for anybody who in the competition missed last weekend. And then they will level you. So we should find out probably sometime next week, possibly the week of Christmas. I doubt it, will probably come out after when we get back from break. But as soon as I know, I will post it to you guys so that you know. Okay. Remember that the scores that were being posted in the live scores are not including the Cisco quiz and the packet tracer scores. And then Brennan, you just said, can we make it up? We already played the game, the images. So no, these are the makeup days are for people who had like a catastrophic event and could not compete due to the fires or due to snow, like an incredible snowstorm or something like that. So they are very strict on what days you can and cannot play, and you really have to have a very good reason as to why you would do a makeup day. Many teams don't do that, so just as a heads up on that. So if you guys can do me a favor and Mr. Bush and Mr. Rodriguez a favor and kind of jot down that list, what I'll do is, like I said, in the Google Drive, in the round 2 folder, we'll set up a good and bad and ugly list, and you guys can list things that you found that you couldn't figure out, or if there were things that you heard other teams talking about and you still have no idea what they're talking about, put it down, and we'll see if we can cover those for you.
Yeah, I recall some people asking about FTP, so we could definitely cover that to help you guys understand as you're making changes. All right.
Anybody else have anything else? Scripts. Isaac is asking what scripts are. Write it down in the
okay. All right, so I just want to reiterate what a great job you guys did. And, you know, I wish I had done this because as you're doing this, the competition, it runs all the way through Sunday. So the scoreboards were up to the end, and that's where you see how you did really against others. And, you know, our teams did very well. So I think we're going to definitely have a couple, at least 2 probably platinum teams, maybe more. And that's good and bad. It's tough competition to be with those platinum teamers. But then that basically the state round is kind of the thing that if we you make it to platinum, that's great. But then it's really hard to get beyond that unless you're really on your game. I don't think we had any platinum teams move on beyond the state round, right? Last year, did we, Mr. Wood?
No, we didn't. We just had our gold team move on.
So, and you know, you guys are doing great, and so I'm confident we can get another probably couple teams into the state round or beyond the state round. So, looking forward to that.
All right, guys, don't forget tomorrow at the beginning of lunch, meet in the bleachers on the right-hand side of the stadium so we can get our picture taken. And yeah, I think that's it. Wanted to show you I created this here. The problems or questions from round 2. It's in the Google Drive, round 2. And it sounds like my children are having a meltdown in the background. Sorry. Don't forget to wear your blue shirts for Cyber Patriot or bring them with you. Any other questions? They take the scoreboard down as soon as the game is over on Sunday. So you will not be able to see it until they have the official scores out, which will come out in the next couple weeks. Simon, at lunch, you are meeting in the